Hi, welcome to Diving into Deep Waters. I am your host, Erin Rolling. And apparently last week as I was listening, I realized I called this podcast Deeper Waters and even started to record this podcast and said Deeper Waters again. So apparently I've changed the name of my podcast to Deeper Waters. I don't know what's wrong with me, you guys. Sometimes I wonder if I have a brain. So does anyone else wonder that? Like, where is my brain? What is happening? What is my life? I don't know. Anyways, you're at the right podcast. We're all here. It doesn't matter what it's called. So we're just gonna move on with that. So volleyball season has wrapped up for us, which I don't know. I have a lot of feelings about it because, this year we made it farther than we did last year. Last year was a rebuild year. And this year, I feel like the girls had some changes and stuff like that, but they just good positivity, just good, like fun playing and stuff like that. And so I feel like they did really well. But we made it to district finals, like the final game of districts, which didn't happen last year. So that was super great. I feel like we had a lot of growth as a team this year. But at the end of the day, it's just sad. It's just sad when a sport's done. And like our daughter Liz played sports and she just went from one sport to the next. Abby's a different kid and she's like only going to play volleyball. So it's like, this is our first week without volleyball. And we're actually going to go to a game tonight to go watch a regional game. Because Abby's like, I just want to go watch, which will be fun. Because it's like, my kid's not playing. Like, I don't have the butterflies. I don't have the sick feeling in my stomach. I just get to go watch some volleyball. So we'll have a good time. But it is sad, though, the last game that the girls play, especially when they're like a senior. And my kid's not even a senior. I have 1 year left, and I'm still like, I don't know. I was a little sad. And yeah, we'll figure out what to do with our time. We've spent so much of our life in bleachers, which, let me just say this. We did get some bleacher chairs. I don't even know if I've talked about that here, but if I have, dismiss this. And if I haven't, I'll send you the link because your world will be changed. Like, why did we sit on those hard benches for so many years? What is wrong with us when you could sit in these luxury chairs? They're just phenomenal. So thank you to the Parkers for our chairs. I'll give a little shout out. And yeah, so, but when I was sad, I do remind myself, there's a lot of kids that play sports at our church. And we really do enjoy going and watching them play and hanging out with the families and stuff like that. So plenty of other sports to go watch. The thing that, I don't know, like kind of when you end a season of something and you kind of look back at it, I'm just really proud of Abby this season. She was a captain. She was a captain last year too, but I don't know, just when you see like qualities built in your kid and things grown in them and things that you haven't seen before in them, I feel like sometimes with sports, we get so caught up in the sport and we want to win. Like parents get ejected from games because they want to win. And which that shouldn't happen. We shouldn't do that. That is not proper sportsmanship. But I think we just get caught up in all of the game of it and forget like what is producing in our kid and what is it growing in our kid. And Abby is kind of one of those people, like with our family, she will speak up, like no problem. But with other people, sometimes that's not something she does. And as a captain, I watched her really speak up. I watched her look out for her teammates and try to protect them and just go into hard conversations with her coaches. And I just saw a different side of her and such a grown-up version of her because I know she was petrified, but yet she just felt so strongly about it. And not only that, but I watched her like encourage her teammates and I watched her encourage a coach like, hey, you are a good coach and just speak life. And it just has been an awesome year of watching her blossom in leadership. And even today, I'm so proud of her. She is nothing to do with volleyball, but she is a lead teacher at the TOTS at the Career Center. And she's so nervous, but she ran down her whole little schedule with me. And I just think last year that would have been something that she would have been like, I'm sick. I can't go to school and do. And to see how far she's come and progressed in herself, it's just like sports give your kids so much more than just a sport. Like they're not going to play sports more than likely for the rest of their life. And that's parents' dreams. Sometimes it's a kid's dream. And if it is, then they try to go for it. But often it's more of a parent's dream, I have found. And even in our own thing, like I would love to watch Abby play volleyball in college. That's not on the docket for her. And you got to respect that. But what can she learn? How can she grow in the season that she's in? And so just looking back and just kind of taking it in, I'm just a super proud mama of the growth that she's allowed herself to personally grow in. And it's, her coaches did this thing with them for one of their district games. And I just thought it was so cool because like affirmation is so important. Like affirmation not on maybe how your kid plays, but who they are as a person. My husband shares a story from a long time ago that our daughter Liz, when she tore her ACL, like she was like, who am I now? I've always been the sports kid. And that was like a failure in our parenting. And so we really tried to learn from that. But I loved about what the coaches did with their players was they put a piece of paper on the back of each player and taped it on there. And each player walked around and wrote what they liked about that person. And yes, it had some things to do with volleyball, but there were things like, one was something along the lines of like, we know why you're captain. And another one was like, when I feel down, you're the only person who can get me out of that feeling. Like just things about who she is as a person. And so if your kid's in sports, yes, it's great if your kid is great at the sport, but make sure you're speaking affirmations into who they are as a person, what they bring to your family. The sport does not make them who they are. It's just a part of who they are, but it's not their identity. And make sure that we really are careful with that. Just speaking from someone who failed at that. So something we're working on, and us parents, we got to look out for each other and speak like, hey, this is what I learned, because it can really backfire on you when you get some of that stuff wrong. And so just want to encourage you in that. Just speak some affirmation to your kid, whether they're a sports kid or a band kid or a drama kid or whatever kind of kid they are, like, and they're good at it. That's great. But speak to who they are and as a person. And that will go farther than who they are on the court or in a play or as a musician or an artist or whatever your kid is good at. So moving on. I didn't really intend for this to turn into a two-parter, but it's going to. I'll tell you that right now. I think I saved that till the end to tell you, but I'm just going to open the lid on that right now because there's no way we could get it all in one podcast. I actually thought I could. And then I got done and I was like, wait, that's a whole podcast. And so I thought we'll make it into two. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to kind of go down a little further from where we were in Judges, and we're going to just keep kind of rolling with it because there's some good stuff there. If you hear some noise in the background, I think the heater is on in this building. I don't know, and it's kind of loud. I haven't had to really deal with that being in this space. But anyways, so we're going to go down the line. We're going to kind of go into a character of the Bible that maybe you more than likely know him, Samson. Most people know who Samson is. We know the story. But I think if we've learned anything, there's always more we can glean and grow. We can know the story about someone or something in the Bible, but like when we get to the bones of it and like there's lessons for us to learn. So, but if you don't know, or I'll just give you a little reminder, he has these luscious locks of hair. He's super strong. He ends up giving his secret away why he's so strong to a woman of all people. And they shave his head, they pluck out his eyes, and then at the end of his life, he basically delivers Israel from the Philistines. So we'll get more into his story. No worries, because you're like, if you haven't heard his story, that sounds intriguing. And even if you have, I think it'll be still intriguing. But there was something that I've never paid attention to, because in Sunday school, when you learn about Samson, they're not and let's talk about his parents. That's not usually something you hear anything about. Maybe a little bit about how Samson was conceived, kind of thing, but not into their story as much. And at first, when I started writing this podcast, I actually changed this last minute. I wrote from his mom's perspective, because I'm a mom, I just kind of relate to a mom. But then when I went back over it, I'm like, it's really Samson's parents, because both Samson's parents have different roles. They approach his birth differently, which reminds me of a marriage. Most people in a marriage are very different. Paul and I are very different. We react very differently to things that happen in our lives and so forth. And Samson's parents are no different. They're a married couple. They react differently. So I was like, I think we should go more of the aspect of both of them, pay attention to both of them, than just the mother. So that's what I ended up doing. Now, it says that what I do always find it interesting, though, there's a whole story, there's a whole chapter dedicated to Samson's mom, but it never says her name. And I actually looked it up, because sometimes you can find out what someone's name is because of old manuscripts, and it kind of tells, and I looked and I couldn't find it. If you can find it, let me know what it was. But I in my studying, I didn't find her name. It just refers to her as Manoah's wife and Samson's mother. Samson's parent. She gets a whole chapter of the Bible that tells her story, but they don't give her name. So I don't know. The Bible is puzzling to me a little bit. I don't know if you ever just read your Bible and go, There's been a few chapters, at least recently, where I just was scratching my head, what is happening right now? And it's one of those things, why not say her name? I don't know. I don't know what the thinking was behind that. But before we get into Samson's parents, I think we gotta kind of back it up from there. And because that chapter, Joshua chapter 13, not Joshua, Judges. I actually looked up Joshua 13, and it was some other scripture, and I'm like, wait a second, how am I getting this wrong? Judges 13. And it starts with this. Now you're going to be this is the same song and dance that I have heard before, and you're not wrong, because it says again, the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and the Lord delivered them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. Notice the word again. It's again. Again. It's just this vicious cycle with the Israelites, right? They're in bondage, they repent, they get deliverance, there's blessing, and then the again comes back into play. They're back into sin. And we have Samson, who is born into the sinful state of Israel, into the captivity of what's happening. And it is interesting because Samson's story kind of parallels the Israelite story a little bit, in the sense of, I read this line about Samson, and it said, Samson is an example of unfulfilled potential. While he did do great things for God, it is staggering to consider what he might have done and been for God, which we will get more into his story. But that's just an ouch. Israel, they did do good things, but they never quite lived up to their full potential. Samson had a lot of potential, but he didn't quite live up to all of it. And like I said, I'm not going to go down there because we're going to save it for the next podcast. But let's dive into his parents' story. It says, now there was a certain man from Zorah of the family of the Danites, the clan of Dan, which is one of the clans of Israel, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and had no children. And the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman, and he said to her, indeed, now you are barren and have borne no children. She's probably like, no kidding. But you shall conceive and bear a son. Again, here's an angel popping up on the scene. My friend texted me and she said, from the last podcast, she said, my bowels would betray me. She said, that line cracked me up. I'm just being honest. Especially like I've been taking fiber, y'all. I've been changed my eating a little bit. So I need to make sure I get my fiber in. And so I've been taking fiber. Does that not feel like an old person thing to take fiber? Sometimes, you guys, I just look at the stuff I take and I say, I'm getting old. The fact that I like to eat at 5 o'clock, you know what? I would eat at 4:30. I would eat at 4:30. Dinner at 4:30 and be done. Like that'd be amazing. That's old, you guys. That's what old people do. If you're old, I am not shaming you. I'm just saying I'm joining you. Anyways, yeah. Like you really wanted to know about my fiber intake, but it's what's happened in this body. We need it. Anyways, but I will say it's really helped me, I think. Anyways, so if you're struggling, I can send you a link for some fiber. That's what you listen to this podcast for, right? So you can know what fiber to take should you need it. Now, this isn't just any angel. We're not dealing with just like, okay, like I say that, like if an angel showed up and just be like, well, you're an angel, but you're like Gabriel. You're not like the Lord, kind of thing. I think no matter what kind of, even the lowest, I don't know if there's ranking of angels. I should look that up. But even the lowest of the ranked of the lowest of angels, if it showed up at your doorstep, I think you'd poop your pants. Like, I don't care what kind of angel it is. But we do know that this angel is not one of the other angels. It's not a messenger from the Lord. Like, Scripture makes very clear when it's a messenger and when it is the Lord. And we'll get a little bit more into that so you know that I'm not just saying stuff. All right. It says, I don't know, I got ahead of myself, but think about it. So first of all, an angel appears to her. Secondly, she's barren. She has wanted a baby. It doesn't say for how long she's wanted a baby. It just says she has been barren, which for any woman, not an ideal situation, number one. I don't care what part of history you're a part of. When you want a baby, you want a baby. It doesn't matter what century you were born in. Back then, that obviously we know was a little bit more like shameful. And so thank the Lord we have come a long way with that kind of stuff. And we don't shame women for not having kids and stuff like that. But back then, it's never been great, but it was a little less great. Just when you look at like how women were treated, they weren't treated great anyways. And then when you can't bear a child, that's not great. And then when you can't bear a son, I mean, that's a lot of pressure. I don't know about you, but I'm thankful that I was not born in that time. Okay. Now here's the other thing. When we do find out we're having a kid, we're not given any instructions. Like people try to write parenting books, right? But your kid doesn't always like fit into the mold of that. Not every kid is, all 4 of my kids, very different babies, very different toddlers, very different people in many different ways. So it's not like a one size fits all, like this is exactly going to work for every kid. But I mean, she does get kind of like some instructions, which I don't know about you, but I think that would have been very helpful. If an angel would have appeared to me with each of my kids and said, here is what you need to do, that would have been so helpful. That's not what happened. Maybe it happened for you, didn't happen for me. But she does get some instructions because he says, "Now therefore, please be careful not to drink wine or similar drink, and do not eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive a son, and no razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb, and he shall begin to deliver Israel out of the hands of the Philistines." Now, what is a Nazarite? Because we need to just not read over things. And maybe you know what a Nazarite is, maybe you don't. These people, Nazarites were people who would make a vow specifically to God, to be devoted to God. For some people, that didn't mean that was a forever thing. It could have been just for a certain amount of time of their life. In Samson's instance, this is a forever thing. This is like from conception to the day he dies. Also involves his mom. It kind of ropes his mom into that as well, because she needs to put that into effect as she is pregnant with him. And basically that being devoted to God, it would be things like they don't cut their hair, they don't drink wine, they don't eat grapes. So anything close to wine or anything like that, grape products, they don't eat it. They avoid contact with anything that is dead. So kind of have this, by doing those things, it's showing that they're devoted to the Lord. Now, we also don't get what our child is going to do with their life. I mean, as we watch our kids grow, maybe we see little signs, or we feel like God gives us, wisdom on things, or we see different characteristics about our kid, and we kind of like unpack those and think, well, maybe they're going to use those, or they're gifted at this. It's kind of as they grow, we kind of see those things, but not just like when we get pregnant, or you adopt a kid, or however a child comes into your life. We know there's many ways for that to happen. We don't really get all of those instructions. But here's something that the angel tells his mom. And notice that, I don't know if you picked this up or not, but it says, "He shall begin to save Israel." A writer wrote, his ultimate failure was certainly foreknown, as was his opportunity. I don't know if his mom caught that when the angel said it, like he shall begin to save Israel. If she was like, well, why doesn't he fully save Israel? I'm sure she had some questions about it, but also an angel's talking to you. You probably don't remember everything that the angel says. But right here, we see that in his life, he's going to have failure, and he's going to have opportunity, but he's also going to have failure. And he's not going to completely fulfill bringing the Israelites away from their captivity. So, what does one do with being visited by an angel and a word from God? Well, it says, "And so the woman came and told her husband, saying, a man of God came to me, and his countenance was like the countenance of the angel of God. Very awesome. But I did not ask him where he was from, and he did not tell me his name. And he said to me, behold, you shall conceive and bear a son." I like... Maybe because this is so this happens in our marriage. So maybe that's why I can relate to it. That's why I like it, because I like how she explains herself, like why she didn't ask him where he was from or what his name was, because maybe she thought my husband is a detail person and he's going to want to know all these details. So I'm just going to explain right up front, this angel was so awesome. It was like I was talking to God, which more on that a little bit later. And it was so awesome. It was just overwhelming. I didn't even have time to think about that's probably something she thought of, when you walk away from something, you're like, oh, I should have asked those things. That's how I feel like she was. She was like, oh, I didn't ask those things, but I didn't ask them because I was so in amazement. Now, Manoah is like my husband in the fact that he has questions. If I was visited by an angel and I went to a ball, he'd be like, what was his name? Where was he from? He'd have 1,000 questions that I didn't even think to ask. That's Manoah. He's the same. Because it says that Manoah prayed to the Lord, And he said, "Oh, my Lord, please let the man of God whom you sent come to us again and teach us what we shall do for this child who will be born." It also said, God listened to the voice of Manoah, and the angel of God came to the woman again as she was sitting in a field. But Manoah, her husband, was not with her. Then she ran and got him and said, "Look, the man who came to me the other day has just now appeared to me." So Manoah rose and followed his wife. And when he came to the man, he said to him, "Are you the man who spoke to this woman?" And he said, "I am." Manoah said, "Now let your words come to pass. What will be the boy's rule of life and his work?" So the angel of the Lord said to Manoah, "Of all that I said to the woman," I feel like it kind of shuts him down a little bit. Like, I've already said what I was going to say. I don't know. I just think that's kind of like a funny little bit about that. But I also feel like God was like, "Okay, Manoah, you have questions that you probably need to get off your chest. So I will, Manoah asked him, like, come back." It's interesting that God doesn't reveal himself to Manoah. He reveals himself to his wife again, but we'll get in a little bit to that. And I don't know if he asked the Lord. It doesn't feel like he's like questioning that it's going to happen. Like, I don't feel like he's filled with doubt. It's because he's like, we know that this child will be born. So there's the faith. He believes that. But at the same time, I feel like he's like a double checker person, which I live with one of those. I don't know if your husband checks I can cook something and I can check the knobs to make sure I turn them off. But I got a double checker behind me, making sure that, which he has produced that in some of my kids too. Like, to the point of them like taking a video of something they did to remind themselves that they did it. So, yeah. If you have that in your family, you know what that's like. Like, we have to double check garage doors. We have to check. I have a kid who's like, "Did you check the doors before they go to bed?" Like, oh, they're double checkers. I'm not really a double checker. I've turned into a little bit of a double checker because my husband. Because I know he'll ask me. Like, when I leave the church, I double check the doors because I know he would ask me, "Did you double check the doors?" And I want to be able to not lie. Especially since he just preached a message online. I don't want to have to lie. But even though he's a double checker, God is patient with him and he, comes, he reveals himself again. But the thing he does not budge on is not exactly what the future will hold. Because it's like Manoah wants to know the answers to his questions. And I feel like God's like, "I've given you enough. Like, you've gotten more than most parents get. So just be happy with that." Anyways, I'm just speculating. Anyways, it says that Manoah wants to prepare a young goat for the angel. The angel's like, "Go ahead, prepare the goat, but I'm not going to eat it." So, and if you're going to offer a burnt offering, make sure that it's offered to the Lord. Now, you might say, like, why did he put that in there? Remember, we're living in a time of rebellion. So people are not offering burnt offerings to the Lord. They're burning them to idols. So the Lord's like, "Listen, if you're going to do that, you better make sure you do it to the right person." And then Manoah asked the angel, like, "What is his name?" He's like, "My wife left out this detail, so I'm going to ask it." And so that, this is his excuse, so that when the word comes to pass, like when we have a kid, we know who to give honor to. And the angel has a rebuttal to that. He says, "Why are you asking me my name, seeing it is wonderful?" Now, this is where we know that this angel is not a messenger. It is the angel of God. It is the Lord himself. He won't eat food. You never see the Lord eating food as far as I'm concerned. Maybe I should say that. I'm like 99% sure the Lord does not eat food in the Bible. You can correct me if I'm wrong. This is a podcast. If I'm wrong, just give me a shout out and be like, "Erin, you're wrong." My husband will correct me if I'm wrong. It must be offered to the Lord when there's a burnt offering or sacrifice, because he gives the young goat, he actually gives grain as well. And the only person who is wonderful by name is the Lord. No other angel is wonderful. He is Wonderful Counselor. We know that name Wonderful is for the Lord. So Manoah, still not quite grasping that it's the Lord, takes the goat and the grain. He offers it up to the Lord. And then the angel does a wondrous thing, it says. As the flame went up to heaven from the altar, the angel of the Lord ascended in the flame from the altar. And when Manoah and his wife saw this, they fell on their faces to the ground. I love that he says, "Why do you ask when you know I'm wonderful?" And then he does a wondrous thing. Spurgeon, an amazing writer. If you've ever read any of his works, I've quoted him a lot here on this podcast. He said two things to notice here. That first, oftentimes we pray for blessing, which makes us tremble when we receive it. The second thing he says is deep prostration of spirit is a forerunner of some remarkable blessings. And I just kind of want to sit with that for a second, because I thought back to the times that I have prayed for blessings. I have prayed for things in my life. And when I receive them, you tremble with amazement. There's just been so many things in my life that I've prayed for, and God has surpassed that prayer even. Or I've never uttered the prayer to anyone and he comes through on it. And it's just you just tremble with in awe that God is so kind and gracious and that he comes through. I don't know. I just pray that we never lose that with the Lord, where it's always I tremble, and not in a fearful way, but just in an awe way. And the second part of this was deep prostration of spirit is a forerunner of some remarkable blessings. I resonate with that because I feel like there's some things in my life right now where I just feel a deep prostration. I didn't have that word, but that my spirit connects with that right now. In prayer, specifically in fasting and in prayer right now. And it's just, I love that it's a forerunner of some remarkable blessing. And that's where the hope is. Just being in this prostrated spirit of okay, Lord, I need you to move. Will you move? Could you move? Please move. And then just being filled with the hope and in this resting place of he's going to move. I don't know when he's going to move, but he's going to move. And I just love those two. I wanted to sit with that for a second, and maybe you found yourself in one of those areas. First of all, to tremble with in awe when God does come through, but also to allow yourself to go into this deep prostration of spirit and with expectation of the fact that he is going to move. So just wanted to take a second with that. Now, it isn't until the angel leaves that Manoah and his wife realize that they had talked to God himself, because it says Manoah's now we are going to die because we have seen God. He's freaking out. And I guess when you've heard probably about your forefathers, no one can see God without dying, with when the Israelites are going through the desert and stuff like that, and they just hear his voice and they tremble. They can't even handle hearing his voice, which I've never heard the booming voice of God, so I'm not going to put shade on them in any way, but I just think it would be amazing to hear his voice like that. And we will. We are going to hear his voice when we get to heaven, and it will be amazing. But I love his wife here because I just feel like she has her wits about her. I feel like she just has it together. Because she says, he's we're going to die. And this is her response to him. She's if the Lord had desired to kill us, he would not have accepted the burnt offerings and the grain offerings from our hands, nor would he have shown us these things, nor would he have told us these things. And I read something that I just thought was like so good, because whether it's a woman or a man, and I'm going to apply this to marriage or relationships in general, when someone has, how do I want to say it? She doesn't criticize her husband. He's like, we're going to die. And she's like, wait a second, back it up a little bit. Let's look at this. But she just says truth. She doesn't criticize him for his lack of faith or lack of whatever he was lacking in that moment. She doesn't like go off on him. No, she just simply points out, like, I'm going to encourage you right now. Like, I encourage your faith right now. And I love that she doesn't go to criticism. She goes to encouragement. And we should never criticize someone when it comes to faith. We should strengthen it. I have seen this abused in the body of Christ. I've seen it abused in relationships with husbands and wives, parents and children. I think we're all guilty of it, myself included, of criticism instead of encouragement. And right here, we have a great example of she built his faith by encouraging him. So when someone lacks faith or someone's bleh, like he is, think, is this the moment to criticize them, or I have the opportunity to build up their faith? So see why I'm saying I like her? Even though we don't know her name, we could name her. What should we name her? Debbie is coming to me, but Deborah was a biblical name, but there was already a Deborah, so probably wasn't Debbie, but maybe it was. And the Lord was like, I don't want to use the name twice. I don't know. I have no idea what it was. Some probably weird, like chakra or shin. So I don't know. I'm going to embarrass myself. So we're just going to move on. I don't know. I just feel like we can see that she was something special. Even though her name is not mentioned, she was something special. Also, like, think about it. The angel of the Lord came to her, not her husband. The angel of the Lord came to her both times. And I think because of her reaction, I think we can see that he went to the right person, which he knows who he's supposed to go to. It wasn't like, oh, I picked the right person. No, he knew that. But it's good for us to see, like, the two kind of personalities, and she was like more settled in it than her husband was. And that could be vice versa. If you're like, are you bashing men? I am not. What I'm saying is there's different kinds of personalities, and we all deal with things very differently. But I feel like she dealt with things very well. The second thing is, I love that she didn't want her husband to miss out. Because that second time, again, the angel comes to her. He doesn't go to Manoah. So I love that she runs and she gets him. Like, she doesn't want him to miss out on it. Like, she wants him to be able to see the angel herself and share that experience with her husband. I don't know. That just stuck out to me. I just thought that was a really cool thing. She doesn't question the authenticity of the promise, showing her faith right from the start. She never was like, I don't know if that's true. We see other examples in the Bible where the God speaks something and people are like, I don't know if that's going to come to pass, or they begin to doubt it. I don't know. She just makes me want to be the kind of mother I think she was, or woman of God that I think she was, is the kind of woman of God that I want to be, or person of faith, if you're a guy listening. Because I just think she believes with faith when God speaks to her. She just believes it, and she's not questioning it. It's so solid. And it's a big thing. It's not like, tomorrow your chicken breasts are going to be cooked perfectly. No, it's like, you're barren and you're going to bear a son. It's a big thing. It's something her eyes have not seen her body do. And yet someone's telling her that that's going to happen, and she believes it. It's just such solid faith. And I want solid faith. I do not want to be tossed and thrown around in my faith. I want to be solid. And I just feel like she exemplifies that. She doesn't fear for the future. This is something some of us can really struggle with. This is not a man or a woman thing. This is just personality things. Some people struggle more with what does tomorrow bring? I have a kid who struggles with, well, what am I going to do when this? And I'm like, you got to take one day at a time because tomorrow has its own problems. So let's just sit in today because today is going to probably present some challenges. And if you're so concerned about the future, you're not going to be able to deal with what happens today. So let's just sit here for a little bit. And I love that she just rests in what the angel tells her. If you struggle with fear of your future, let's take some props from her that it's okay. You can just rest in it. Sometimes I think I don't know. It's like people struggle to just rest. It's a problem. It's a huge problem. But resting not just in life, but resting in the fact that God's got it. Here's the thing. In our family, there's some uncertainty in some areas. In our family, like there's also uncertainty in the fact of like our church is growing and how are we going to handle that growth? It feels unsettled. And when you feel unsettled, like you can begin to fear. And I just feel like she just had this confidence that what God was telling her was going to come to pass. And this is an area probably all of us need to work on. It's just saying, okay, God said it, I believe it, and I'm just going to rest in it. So I feel like I'm speaking to someone. I don't know who, because I don't know everyone who listens to it. I feel like that is for someone to take of like, just rest and just have strong faith that God's got it. Okay. Like I said, this could have been like a marriage podcast, but I think more let's go at from the aspect of two different kinds of types of people, whether you're married or you're not married. I just feel like there's kind of a Mary Martha moment here with Manoah and his wife. You've got Manoah who's like feels this need to feed the angel, make a sacrifice, do all these things. And I feel like she's just hanging out. He's just like, there's an angel here. Okay, let's hang out. Okay. And that's that we've done podcasts on that. It's something we all have to be reminded of. And I think we have another example here of like, do, or just rest. Going back to the rest thing. I didn't even plan that. And there it is. He freaks out when he realizes it's the Lord. She doesn't fret. She doesn't put her husband down despite his freak out. She's just merely points out, okay, it's okay. I don't know. I feel like there's just, maybe you identify with Manoah and you're like the person who is like freaks out, or you're the person who has to like double check, or you struggle with just resting. Hey, that's okay. This is not like you're a bad person or anything like that. It's like, okay, sometimes we have to recognize that we do those things and we ask the Lord, help me to be like Manoah's wife, the unnamed woman. Help us to be like her, where it just seemed like she just took it in. Even though it's like a big thing, she just took it in. She just sat with it. She was okay with it. She believed it. She just kind of went with the flow. And if you're like, that is not my personality, you know what? As my husband always says, we can change. Just because we're not something doesn't mean that the Lord can't work that in us, build that in us, mold us into that, because I think that's more what he's looking for. Some Marys. Marthas, you're great. You get a lot done. But you don't allow yourself to sit at the feet of Jesus. And we don't allow ourselves, I'm lumping myself into that one, to just eat and rest and learn and grow. And I would encourage all of us to work on that. And here's the thing about this couple. They are given this task. I mean, this is the start of Samson's story. and this task to raise up one of Israel's deliverers. And it's going to be quite the challenge. He's going to be quite the challenge. And I think that sometimes we have people in our life, whether it's a kid or a spouse or a friendship or something, people that are quite the challenge. So stay tuned. We're going to go into that next week and just maybe do a little soul searching and say, am I Manoah or am I his wife? And if you're Manoah, maybe just say, Lord, how can you work some things in me that I could be more like his wife? All right. Love you guys. Talk to you soon.